Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 19th, 2015 episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk with me, your host, Scotty Ball. Thanks for tuning in this Wednesday night, as hopefully you do every Wednesday night, here on WNLMradio.com, or perhaps you are listening to the show via our newer platforms that we are being brought to you by, such as the free Spreaker app, which I highly recommend, the TuneIn app, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And if you ever want to contact me here at the show with your questions or comments, feedback of any kind, let me know how awesome you think I'm doing, or how terrible you think I'm doing, or how off you think I am on any of my takes, or maybe you happen to agree with me. Whatever. Let me know what you think about the show so that I can help make it better for you and make it more what you, the listener, wants. And you can do that by following the show on Twitter at BDST Show. Real simple. Again, that's at BDST Show on Twitter. Or if you prefer Facebook, I don't, but I'm on there anyway, and for those people who do. So if you prefer Facebook, you can always like me, friend me on Facebook at Scotty-Ball. I have two pages, they're both me. You'll notice the show logo there, and it's pretty, should be pretty self-explanatory, I would think. So again, that's Scotty-Ball on Facebook and at BDST Show on Twitter, should you want to get in touch with the show. Alright, so we got plenty of stuff to talk about on the big show tonight. We're back to a more relaxed time setting here than we've been the last couple of weeks. It's been a real busy, hectic summer. Thank you for, being flexible with me in regards to show times, show lengths, even the day that the show ends up airing. So I wanted to let you know that I do appreciate that very much. But again, in regards to tonight's show, pretty laid back, no time limits. So the over-under on this is definitely, should be probably around 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. On the show tonight, we will be talking plenty of football, especially Minnesota Vikings football, as it is NFL preseason, and I am a huge Minnesota Vikings fan, so we will be going into that more as we've been doing the last several weeks, getting you familiar with what to expect from the new guys on the team, the younger guys on the team, getting you familiar with more of the depth chart guys on the team and things of that nature. Injuries to go around as well in NFL news, including, unfortunately, your Minnesota Vikings, or at least my Minnesota Vikings, maybe your Minnesota Vikings, hopefully not your Minnesota Vikings. And I say that because I bleed purple and gold. I am a Vikings fan no matter what till the day I die. I have tried to not care and not be a Minnesota Vikings fan, but I can't help it. I am anyway. So I say that because it's painful to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. I think maybe Buffalo Bills fans, or Detroit Lions fans, or Cleveland Browns fans, they can maybe understand a little bit of how painful it is to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. So anytime I make a comment like that, it's because I'm trying to spare people the heartache of what that entails to call yourself a Minnesota Vikings football fan. But yeah, so we got injuries as well around the league, and a few contract extensions or news on extensions as well. Maybe we'll check in on Tom Brady's balls and see if there are any updates on that front yet. We'll also be starting a 2-part fantasy football prepper preview, whatever you want to call it. Now, first off, you're welcome. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not. I didn't want to, necessarily give away or reveal too much of, my knowledge before I get all of my fantasy football drafts done. But then I thought, it's just an opinion, and it's never guaranteed to be right or wrong, no matter who you are or how much research you put into what you're doing or how much tend to know what you're talking about. So in efforts to help make your fantasy football seasons be a little more fun, less painful, okay? Like, I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to help anybody win any money or anything like that, but when your team's 0-4, 0-5, 0-6 in fantasy football, it can be not very fun and entertaining anymore, and you just kind of check out. So I'm going to be trying to help you every week. I'm going to try and give you at least a little bit of fantasy football news or news that's relevant to fantasy football owners. And I'm going to start that with a 2-part, like I said, fantasy football prep guide, if you will. And this week in part 1 we'll be focusing, I should say, mostly on draft strategies, do's and don'ts, things of that nature. And next week, then, in our part 2, we will be going over my personal player rankings for each position for this year's fantasy football season. Again, I should be charging you for this, but I'm not sure how I could accomplish that exactly via the means of the radio show / podcast. So I'm just going to give it to you, and if you choose to use it to defeat me in a fantasy football league, then good for you. Thank you for, taking my word for it and listening to me. That's an honor. So yeah, that's where we're going to be at for football talk this week, and then we'll also have baseball talk as well, as now we're getting towards the end of August, which means September, the final month of the baseball season, is soon going to be upon us. So we'll be getting you up to date on all of that, as well as be talking some Twins news. Again, I am a resident, lifelong, native Minnesotan, and so we do spend, when we single out teams here on Balls Deep Sports Talk, we tend to single out the Minnesota teams, unless, of course, there are other things going on that are interesting, or we're in the postseason and there are no Minnesota teams to talk about then anymore, as happens all too often. All right, also we'll be talking some PGA golf and discussing Jason Day's record-breaking, I should say, first ever career major victory this past weekend at Whistling Straits Golf Course in Kohler, Wisconsin, to win the 2015 PGA Championship. So we will be discussing that, and we'll also be talking some Jordan Spieth, as there's some news with him as well. Good news, of course. And Tiger Woods, some interesting news to keep an eye on that is interesting and entertaining. Like I said, not necessarily good news for Tiger Woods, but entertaining and intriguing from a sports fan's point of view. Maybe a quickie on tennis, as the U.S. Open is coming up here at the end of the month. Try and catch you up for sure on some NASCAR Sprint Cup standings. Yes, you're welcome. That's a great sign. Less than 10 minutes in, and we're already having troubles talking. Fantastic. That should make for quality entertainment coming up. We'll also be keeping you up to date now that we've started, as of last week's show, on the WNBA standings and playoff race, as their season ends on the 13th of September here. So they've got, 3.5 to 4 weeks left. So they are in their home stretch. Also a potential NBA trade rumor that you will get my thoughts on. And it does involve a member of my Minnesota Timberwolves. So stay tuned for that if you are a fellow Minnesota sports fan. Maybe be touching just a little bit on the upcoming college football season, as that is only 15 days away until the start of the 2015 NCAA college football season. We'll also be talking just a tiny bit of UFC 191 coming up here on the 5th of September, so that's just a few weeks away. And then lastly here, in the outline, in the what's to come preview, not lastly necessarily what's order things are going to be on the show, but saving the best for last in the preview part. Tonight will mark the third, and that is a record-breaking, by the way, a third special guest appearance here on Balls Deep Sports Talk to help me discuss and preview the current state of pro wrestling, primarily the WWE, recapping this week's events at Monday Night Raw, which took place right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Target Center, and then of course previewing this Sunday's 4-hour SummerSlam pay-per-view. So, can't wait for Doug Sanders, WWE Guru Extraordinaire, to be on the show later this evening, helping me preview WWE SummerSlam and talking other pro wrestling. And if you have ever listened, if you caught the 2 episodes that he has been on prior to tonight's, he is the foremost expert mind, wrestling mind, pro wrestling mind that I know. And we love having him on the show. It's always a great time. So, and if you haven't, if you didn't ever catch those 2 episodes in the past, I want to say it's episode 6 or 7, and then some episode from June. His first episode, it was back in April or late March, previewing WrestleMania. His second appearance was in June, previewing the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And then now tonight will be his third appearance, helping me preview SummerSlam. So again, we've got that to look forward to, and that should happen, I don't know, I'd say about an hour into the show will be when we'll look to get our special guest appearance on and talk some pro wrestling. So if you're looking forward to that, that's something to tune back in for, or stay tuned for, I should say. Hopefully you don't tune out. But if you're not into pro wrestling talk, then we'll at least give you a solid, 45 to 60 minutes of quote-unquote real sports talk before we have our wrestling session of the show, and then after the pro wrestling talk, we will finish up with whatever topics we missed real quick. But alright, so let's get underway, and what to start this week's opening segment with. I mean, if I was being honest and what I'm the most, about, it would be wrestling, WWE, SummerSlam, special guest Doug Sanders. But I gotta save that for later on in the show. So, I could go baseball, could go PGA Championship. My man, Jason Day, record-setting 20 under par, breaks the all-time record of 19 under par, formerly held by Tiger Woods, for lowest score to par ever to win a major. And if you've listened to the show for a long period of time and you don't tune out and go find other things to do when I talk about PGA golf, which I actually devote quite a bit of time to here on the show, I think my loyal listeners would attest to that. I don't know if they like it or not. Nobody's complained yet on Twitter or Facebook. So, I don't know. But if you frequent the show, you would know that Jason Day has been my guy this year. Every golf tournament, every major that we have previewed, he has been brought up as one of my few guys to keep an eye on. He was my pick to win the Masters tournament. He was one of my 3 to 5